today's two sessions with Tian Wei. Economic recovery in the face of tall hurdles. China doubles down on a rebound for growth as the crucial political gatherings buckle down to work on institutional reforms and China's top leadership. How does China plan to step up to the challenge? Insights from a CPPCC member, Lawrence Ho, a Macau businessman who's got his finger on the pulse of the economy.
Actions speak louder than words. During China's annual political season this year, I want to take you to meet them, who believe in the greater good and who practice what they preach. Join me two sessions with Tian Wei on World Insight. Hello and welcome to two sessions with me, Tian Wei. I'm on top of the meetings this year, inside and outside the Great Hall of the People, and update you about the ongoing discussions and top priorities. Thousands of national representatives and policy advisors are already halfway through this year's two sessions. On Friday, National People's Congress deputies held group meetings to vote on reforms to the state council institutions. The country's top legislature also voted on key leadership candidates, including the Chinese president and vice president. Here's a look.
By a unanimous vote, Xi Jinping is elected Chinese president and chairman of the Central Military Commission after a standing ovation at the Great Hall of the People. The president walks to the podium, taking an oath of allegiance to the Constitution.
I pledge to be allegiant to the Constitution of the PRC, safeguard the Constitution's authority, fulfill my legal obligations, be loyal to the country and the people, be committed and honest in my duty, accept the people's supervision, and work for a great modern socialist country that is prosperous, strong, democratic, culturally advanced, harmonious, and beautiful.
In the past decade, the world's second-largest economy has eradicated absolute poverty and built the largest education, social security, and healthcare systems in the world. She said China has also joined the ranks of the world's innovators while achieving an overwhelming victory and fully consolidating the gains in the fight against corruption. Lawmakers at the third plenary session elected Zhao Leji as chairman of the 14th NPC Standing Committee and Han Zheng as vice president of China. They also adopted the plan for the second round in a decade of institutional restructuring of the State Council.
All of humanity face existential threat from a rapidly warming planet that spawns calamities and a lingering pandemic and man-made disasters due to geopolitical conflict. These have tested long-held beliefs about collective security, vibrant trade, and the benefits of globalization. So, can we trust and be confident in working for the greater good, win over the cynicism and empty rhetorics? For its part, China seeks to rekindle hopes of economic recovery and confidence in a better future during its annual political season. The government work report delivered on Sunday to the 14th National People's Congress has shown the nation's resilience. China will tap into growing domestic demand and seek to shore up foreign investment. In an exclusive conversation with Lawrence Ho, a CPPCC member who's also a business person from Macau, he lost no confidence in the Chinese economy. He said that with central government's vision, the Greater Bay Area will be on the way up. Mr. Ho, what a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you very much for your time.
So you were there when the Chinese premier delivered the annual government work report, around 5% the growth rate. What do you make of that number, and what does that mean, do you think, for the economies in Hong Kong and Macau where you work?
In terms of the around 5% GDP growth, again, given all the uncertainties and volatilities in the world, I think that's a very good result. And at the end of the day, Hong Kong and Macau is part of the mainland. And so Hong Kong and Macau's success is 100% dependent on the success of the mainland. So to know that the government, the central government is targeting around 5%. You know, it's a huge relief, especially after the last 3 years of COVID and everything that businesses in Macau went through.
But some analysts elsewhere suggested, well, China's around 5% GDP growth rate set for itself is based on, you know, a very slow growth rate of the year 2022. So why not China be more ambitious? Is China facing a lot of problems right now that are not solvable? What do you think?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you know, a lot of the analysts don't understand China. You know, I think based on President Xi's agenda, you know, there are other types of reform that the government is embarking upon. And so I think the around 5% gives a lot of wiggle room in terms of doing other reforms. Yes, I think after 3 years of COVID, the economy is top of the agenda. But at the same time, there are other matters for the government to tackle. So I think, again, giving the government its space to work, I think that's the best alternative. And frankly, if you look at China and its development, reform and opening up is by far and away the most, you know, the impressive in terms of world economies. And so, you know, I'm happy with the around 5%, and, you know, I was just delighted to hear that the economy was top of the agenda.
Resilience, of course, Mr. Ho, is one of the most important qualities. I guess everybody will agree with that for businesses these days. I understand over the past 3 years, tourism and also gaming industry in Macau have been suffering as a result of the pandemic. Now, how did you and others survive? What do you think you have learned through the past 3 years? You were quite, in fact, when I was reading some of the media reports of the time, cool-minded. In the middle of the pandemic, people were expecting things to get better soon, but you were suggesting that people need to be more patient. But now, in retrospect, what do you make of resilience?
Well, I think you're right. You know, the last 3 years, you used two words that really best describe the last 3 years, which is really resilience and also survival. Macau is a tourism center, so tourism center needs people and visitors. With COVID and the quarantine requirements, we really didn't have any visitors. And also as part of the biggest industry, you know, the 6 gaming companies in Macau, and our corporate social responsibility, we didn't let any of the local employees go.
How many local employees you have?
We have, in Macau, we have over 12,000 employees. So for 3 years, we kept everybody on. There was a lot of restructuring with the banks, and you know, we're grateful to our main lenders then there were Chinese banks, so they understood what was going on. So it was just about trying to survive and kept restructuring the various loans that we had.
Right. Is that too optimistic a statement? Many wonder, because besides the pandemic, you also got other complexities that we haven't encountered, shall we say, in the past decades almost. Mr. Ho, for example, geopolitics. I know your business were listed in the US, for example, and then you were trying to balance how to make sure there is going to be sustainable potential of growth. So what is your decision now, and how have you been dealing with geopolitics as one of the most outstanding businesses in Macau?
Well, my company, Macao, is listed on the NASDAQ in the US, and we listed it back in 2006, so many, many years ago. You are absolutely right that geopolitics is becoming a much bigger issue in the last 5 years. And I think at the onset of COVID, that escalated the tension in geopolitics. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate the U.S. government decided to use the PCAOB accounting issue to target some of the China-related companies, and of course, you know, Macao being in Macau and Hong Kong was part of that. We have been trying to mitigate that for the last few years, and our wish and our end game is still to list in Hong Kong, but we have our own issues there because the parent company of Macao is listed in Hong Kong. So technically, one business can't sustain two listings. So, we keep trying to explain to them that, this is a serious issue because we don't want to be involved in, at the end of the day, we are a China business. We're firmly on China's side. We don't want to get involved in this geopolitics. Hopefully, we get this resolved with the Hong Kong Stock Exchange eventually, and so we can list Macao Resorts and our Macau assets back on Hong Kong.
One of the things is that everything is on the moving. None of them is already certain. So I guess it requires so much of managing skills as we speak. So let me ask you about the transition, which is another key word, I guess. The gaming industry in Macau will continue until the year 2033. That's 10 years from now. But the government has given this time a time of transition, meaning that the gaming industry can continue, but the gaming companies, including yours, need to provide funding for that transition to other industries. I know you are doing that together with the other 5, but tell me more about what do you make of this transition? Which stage is it already? This is much more beyond just the ESG. This is more of a nature of transition of business.
Well, I think the mandate to diversify Macau has been one that has been given for close to 20 years now. And I do think that Macau has transformed. So if you went to Macau during the handover back in 1999 and then you go today, there's been significant change. So, no longer are there dingy, smoky casinos. Now you have some of the nicest integrated resorts in the world. And so non-gaming, entertainment, culture, sports, that's a big part of what Macau is today. We, at the end of the day, we fully respect the government's direction and vision, and it is something that it's coming from the central government as well. So we will faithfully continue to build upon that. And I am confident that Macau, with the power of the Greater Bay, can really play its role as being the key tourism center, and the reliance on gaming will continue to decrease. It will always be a part of it. Even a place like Las Vegas, gaming is still a very big part of it. But non-gaming will become more and more important. And starting even April this year, my company, we're opening the largest indoor water park in Asia, in Macau. We have the first residency concert series with some of the most famous Canton pop stars starting also in April. So there are a lot of excitement and non-gaming things happening. I think we're on a good path for sure in terms of diversifying Macau. And Melco have always been probably the leader in that. I think even back in 2010, we opened the House of Dancing Water, which is by far and away the most famous show in Macau. And we look to, of course, during the pandemic, we had to close it because a lot of the 200 strong performers were from all over the world. But we look forward to reopening that next year. So there are more and more excitement that will be coming into Macau.
Actions speak louder than words. During China's annual political season this year, I want to take you to meet them, who believe in the greater good and who practice what they preach. Join me 2 sessions with Tian Wei on World Insight. Another thing that you mentioned in your earlier answer is about the Greater Bay Area. Of course, due to the pandemic, the synergy of the Greater Bay Areas and the energy of that has not been totally released. But now it could be at a new starting point. Now, what do you see are the key factors to make it work from your perspective?
Well, we've been talking about this as CPPCC members for many years now in terms of unleashing the power of the Greater Bay, because it is, when you look at the population and the places, Hong Kong being a key financial center, Shenzhen being effectively the Silicon Valley of China, where all the technology is happening, Macau being the tourism center. There are a lot to like about the Greater Bay. But at the same time, it is because Hong Kong and Macau are still special administrative regions and have their own laws. Traveling between the Greater Bay, whether it's the flow of human capital, the flow of money, there are still a lot of matters to figure out on those fronts. And I know there is a concerted effort from the central government to really make this happen. And I certainly see the infrastructure is there. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai Macau Bridge is the longest bridge in the world. When I used to live in Hong Kong, I used it almost on a daily basis, and it's very convenient. So I do think the power can be unleashed, but of course given it's 3 sets of laws and 3 sets of many things, there are issues to work out. And I think with the direction and the push from the central government, I do think that the Greater Bay can realize its potential.
There are media reports which I cannot confirm at this moment, but I'd love to ask you that the Office for the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs is likely to be under the leadership of an organization directly under the Chinese Communist Party. Now, if that happens, what does that mean to your business?
Well, I think it's even it gives greater importance to Hong Kong and Macau, and frankly, this is my 3rd term as a CPPCC member. And on the CPPCC, Hong Kong and Macau members have a bigger ratio than most of the other provinces, and so we've always felt that very grateful that the central government has places so much trust in our thoughts and our opinions. To be honest, the closer we are to the central government and the party, in my opinion, the better it is, because it elevates the importance of these 2 special administrative regions. So if what you hear and what we're reading is true, it's a great news.
But the world, some try to divide it ideologically. Do you see a closer relationship to the party might have an impact on your business?
Well, I try to, from a business standpoint, my business with Macau, the closer we are to the central power base, I think the better it is for both Hong Kong and Macau and for our businesses.
Well, the year 2024 will mark, which is next year, will mark the 25th anniversary of Macau's return to China. What do you see in retrospect have been this grand transition Macau has been on since 25 years ago almost?
Well, I think absolutely. I think just look at the past 25 years and the transformation that Macau has gone through. 25 years ago, Macau was, security was an issue. There were gang warfares, triad gang warfares. There was crime everywhere. And now Macau, and it was a little fisherman's village. And now Macau is on the map. When you say Macau, everybody in the world would know about it. And all of that is thanks to the support that the central government and what China has done. Because without the support of the central government, Macau would not have been able to grow the way that it has. I believe Macau is the 2nd highest GDP per capita place in the whole on the whole earth. So a lot has changed. Macau has been cleaned up. The image of the Macau, the old days of Macau of being ridden with crime and just bad things, that's long gone. People think of Macau and say, wow, yeah, that's a huge tourism center. And in retrospect, the 25 years have been amazing. And I think you can say the same thing about Hong Kong, because yes, Hong Kong was always an international city, but the last 25 plus years in Hong Kong has also drastically changed their fortunes for the better, for the financial markets, for the real estate markets, just all aspects. Again, that's because thanks to the support that the central government has given both Hong Kong and Macau.
Mr. Ho, I want to ask more on a personal note, but to your profession and also to your career. Many media reports portray you as someone who rather try to make an independent business away from the family wealth and legacy. What do you make of your generation's responsibilities in terms of facing the new international environment, and certainly a very different China compared to decades ago?
My generation and me personally, we have legendary fathers. My father was a legendary figure, and he was one of the very early ones to to embrace the country and to really stand out. When the country was changing. When Deng Xiaoping was opening up the economy, he was one of the very first ones to really embrace the change and support the country. And so as the second generation, and I see this term, there are a lot more second generations in CPPCC. So I think it's also important to respect the footsteps that our fathers or parents walked, and try to live up to their legacy. So at CPPCC, that's what I'm trying to do as well in terms of contributing to what's best for Macau, but most importantly, in my opinion, what's best for the country.
Some who have been working with you, sir, Mr. Ho, said both of you and your sister are very capable of being able to fit into the environment and be able to speak different language systems, whether business or political systems, in order to make sure to have better communications. I guess that takes a lot of skills to learn, isn't it? A lot of time to learn as well.
Well, again, I was lucky because my father was he was very good at what he did, and so I had a first-hand experience from observing. But again, it's understanding. And trying to just do what's best for the environment and at that certain time, where the opportunities are, and finding those opportunities.
The young people today in our world, also in this part of the world, are facing challenges of their generation, the economy, the geopolitics, the pandemic, and a lot of other uncertainties. Their life is not guaranteed to be getting ever better, as we experienced probably over the past decades. So Mr. Ho, I know you give a lot of encouraging words to the younger generation as well, but what would be your best advice right now?
I agree with you. The world is a very polarizing and uncertain place right now. If you look around, the Russian-Ukraine conflict, you look at how the U.S. is treating China, and some of the Western countries as well. It is a very uncertain place. I think for young people, the easiest thing to say is always, oh, keep working hard. Working hard is just a prerequisite right now. Everybody have to work hard because the world has become a much more competitive place than 20 years ago. But I think as young people of this country, you should really study the parties direction in terms of the vision of the party and where the country is leading, because China is still, if not the most, I think India just passed China as being the highest population in the world, but still, in terms of exponential growth, China is still that country, with the biggest middle class. So there are still plenty of opportunities. So I think as young people, just look for industries and look for areas where the country is rapidly developing. And honestly, half is hard work, the other half is timing and good luck.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hill, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Actions speak louder than words. During China's annual political season this year, I want to take you to meet them, who believe in the greater good and who practice what they preach. Join me 2 sessions with Tian Wei on World Insight. And that's all the time we have for this edition of 2 Sessions with me, Tian Wei. From the Great Hall of the People, on behalf of my team, thanks for watching. Bye for now.